Hi everyone, it's Michael, and it's time for the September 2021 Orchid Collection update. I am so sorry this has taken so long. It's October 10th, so I am 10 whole days late. And I have to be really honest, and this is going to be a theme of this video. I am struggling intensely to invest in self-care, and that is directly proportional to the care I have been able to provide to my orchids. I have been really overwhelmed with a variety of things in my personal life, my workload. Things have been really challenging lately. Thank goodness I'm happy and I'm healthy and I'm counting my blessings every single day. I have a lot of gratitude for the joys that exist in my life, but I am really actively trying to problem solve the limited number of hours in every day. It's been really tough and challenging, so getting to tend to my collection, which is an intimate expression of joy and meditation, has been really hard to prioritize. And I think that this is an important talking point because if we are not whole, we cannot give adequate care to anything else, really. Orchids, people, and I think it really begs the question, how are you prioritizing yourself? I know that I need to do better with establishing boundaries, and really carving out time for myself and for my husband and my loved ones. And I think once I'm able to dial in that element, the rest will fall into place. So it's funny because I know sometimes people get agitated when I talk too much about humanity versus orchids, but I do think that these are intimately intertwined. As caregivers, we have to talk about our humanity because it's a foundational behavior to how we care for these plants. So that is all to say that there are some problems that have arisen within the past month that I do believe are correctable, assuming I can set aside the time to prioritize the plants and make the changes that they need. In regard to my system, I'm doing the exact same thing I was doing last month. I'm flushing all of the containers once to twice a month with tap water. Again, in San Francisco, the tap water is incredibly soft, average TDS of around 6 to 8. From there, typically when I have the time, I am watering with a dilute nutrient solution that consists of Dynagrow as well as CalMag. I have completely neglected fertilizing these at all in the past month, which is problematic, particularly for my catasetum types because I think they're confused about what time of year it is now. But the other interesting impact of my negligence this month is it's really reaffirming which plants are independent. And by that, I mean which plants thrive, whether I'm over caring for them or under caring for them. And it's interesting because it's not the ones you would think. My Psychopsis continues to just live its best life. My Epidendrum green hornet, I think of even my Fragmapedium. It's so strange, but some of them are just completely unbothered by my vacillating care levels. So having said all of that, let's just go ahead and jump in and take a look at the plants that have something new, different, or interesting happening this month. So let's just take a quick overview of the collection in the grow space, and I can highlight what the main problems are here. So a few things. When I say that I missed every month, I missed every month using this little mister down here. Typically, I run my humidifier at a low level, and that will run for a period of about 3 days before requiring a refill. I run the top fan to make sure that they have a moving source of air at all times. Now, here's where I went wrong because I was traveling so much and I didn't even communicate to Justin what to do when I was gone. The plants are not being misted every morning and they really rely on that. I mean, look at how many aerial roots exist in this collection. They all really desperately like and need that ambient humidity boost. We did not run the fan because this is actually a replacement fan. The first one broke, and because it's on a bit of an incline, it makes the most awful screeching noise when you first install it. So I turned it off out of sheer annoyance and I just left it off, and you can see how it impacted the plants. Beyond that, we never refilled the humidifier. It was just completely empty for the entirety of the month. So I think that this is a very dry grow zone now, or has been, which has definitely adversely impacted the plants. And I think that, a lot of them dried out, which orchids don't seem to mind. Even water-loving orchids, they're okay for a period of time when they dry out. But I think that these dried out for a period of maybe 2 weeks or longer, and I don't think that's good for the plants. You can see it in some of the bulbs. And when it comes to the impact, it's all over. I mean, look at this is my Epidendrum hybrid rose. You can see the desiccation of the leaves. You can see the spotting that has kind of taken place. I'm not sure if that is from dehydration or if it's from the lack of moving air. I suspect it's the lack of moving air. Just a lot of other problems like, let's see, pseudobulbs wrinkling. Actually, this is not a great example because I just watered it and it plumped right back up immediately. But there is some dieback on old leaves. You can see that there is just some more marbling happening over here on my dendrobium. It's not the end of the world at all, but it is definitely not ideal. So having said all of that, let's look at them one by one. Jumping in with number 1 in the collection, this is my Phalaenopsis leonher Happy Star, and this one is an example of one that is completely unbothered by my neglect. This one has just done so phenomenally well. It continues to mature and get larger and larger. And as I always bring up, it is a Gemini. It has 2 heads. The plants are growing intertwined. And it's just so happy, so well adjusted, and it requires so little from me. So this is definitely a forever collection plant. Another gorgeous, happy little camper is number 11 in the collection, my Psychopsis Mendenhall Hildos. You can see that its sequential flower spikes are continuing to bloom. It has pushed out quite an impressive set of new growths. I don't know if you can even see them, but if I take you in, you can see the leaves just beginning to fan out. It is really, really impressive how vigorous this one is. And look at the modeling on the leaves. So vivid, so stunning. It has just been completely unbothered by any of the wild swings that I've thrown at it over the course of its time in my collection. Another really unexpected story is my Fragmapedium Sadenia. Now this one is interesting because this one is a water lover. It does not like to dry out. And as I showcased earlier, there was some dieback on the old fan. That's actually not the new fan. But there are 2 flower spikes emerging. Last time it bloomed for me, it bloomed for a period of about 2 to 3 months. And just look at it. It really seems to have just borrowed the extra energy from the old fans that were dying off anyway, and then continue to invest in these beautiful flower spikes. So I am really surprised to see that this one has done so well, but I'll take it. Now on to number 16 in the collection. This is my Dapper Dots Nicolasa Tavares Catasetum, and this one is doing somewhere in the middle. I mean, you can see it's got a very, very sizable new growth, especially compared to the previous one. But if you remember Big Bertha at her biggest, this is not the largest growth she's ever produced. And beyond that, I've leaned it against the wall because it seems kind of unstable. And for the very first time in the time that I've had this plant, the root system doesn't look great. I mean, those look like they're rotting to me. And I think that the cause of this is when I divided this plant, I did not adjust down the fertilizer level to accommodate it just being one bulb. I mean, I used the same amount that I've always used. And I think it might have been too much. So I'm not quite sure how this is doing. It seems to have produced a sizable growth, but again, I don't know that that's necessarily a barometer of health. I'm just gonna keep my eye on it. Now on to number 25 in the collection. This is of course my Epidendrum Green Hornet or my Prosticchia Green Hornet. It is so stunning, it is so beautiful, and it has a flower spike not just on that side, but also on this side. Again, these are sequential bloomers, so this will stay in bloom for quite some time for me. I just really appreciate how effortless this one seems to be. It doesn't demand a lot from me, and it blooms forever so consistently. Now, the concern that I do have, once again, is that it has really just outgrown this container. You can see these roots are trying to escape on both sides, and I can see it now impacting the new growth that's coming in at the bottom. You can see some dieback or some browning that is starting to happen. I've never seen that on this plant before. So I think that this plant really, it's gonna require a repot. It's gonna require a new dynamic, a new setup. Happily, another success story in the collection is number 28 in the collection. This is my Cattleya Purple Blue Hawaii Mini. And this one is just doing so well. I got it repotted a while back because the root system just wasn't making contact with the water reservoir at all. And since it has done really well, you can see a new growth coming in there and a new growth coming in right here as well. It's happy, it's healthy. And this one, the Cattleya types that I have, they really don't seem to mind that dry out period because Cattleyas like to dry out. So again, this seems like a forever plant in my collection because it's not too demanding of me. It forgives me when I forget to give it nutrient solution. It does well with dry outs. So love this one for being so simple and so easy. On to number 36 in the collection. This is of course my Fred Clarkiara After Dark SVO Black Pearl. And you can see it prematurely has lost a couple of leaves because of that dry out. This thing just drinks down its water reservoir in a heartbeat. And so you can imagine being neglected for a period of about 2 weeks to a month. This one was very, very unhappy. And you have to remember that when we're dealing with catasetum types, nutrients are critical. Watering is critical because they have a pronounced grow season and they have a pronounced dormancy season. So I think this one thought it was being forced into early dormancy and it began to lose its leaves accordingly. So I don't know that I have done enough for this plant to spike this year. I'm crossing my fingers. I really, really hope I haven't messed it up because I did such a great job. I mean, look at the growth comparatively to last year. It's huge. It was so vigorous and I was doing so well when I had more time to spend with it. But I'm really hoping I haven't disrupted its cycle. Now, one of the plants that's a bit middle of the road, like I can't tell if it has tolerated my mistreatment well or if it is suffering. Now on to number 46. Number 46 is my Oncidium Twinkle White Pink. And this one's kind of peculiar because I can't tell if it is really angry with me for the mistreatment it sustained over the past month or if it's doing just fine. You can see it's in spike. It has had no issue producing a lovely little flower spike. It's gonna give me tons and tons of little blooms. But the challenge here is the dieback and the marbling on the leaves. You can see, look at all of this. You can see this rotting and dieback, and it's like, I did just miss the plants earlier this morning, so they look wetter than they are, but I don't like how that looks. I have cut off the top portion of the leaf multiple times, and you can see the speckling that is beginning to happen on the bulbs themselves. I don't like that. However, the plant is producing tons of new growths that seem unmarred and unbothered, so I just don't know if I should feel more concerned about this or not. All right, we're in another room now, but one last problem I wanted to highlight as a general rule with the entire collection is the plants that I converted into this grow method using fine bark. Now, I think Miracle Grow makes great products, but this particular potting mix I am not a fan of. You can't tell because I just flushed the containers with water, but the mineral buildup on top has been insane. So excessive for all of the plants that are potted in this method. And even though these two have done well, they don't seem to be particularly disturbed. In fact, this is number 56. This is my Miltonia Sunset, and you can see it's produced quite a lovely little new growth. But even so, that buildup does not look appealing to me. I think that the bark is too fine. I think that the concentration of fertilizer in it is too high. And I think the roots are suffocating just a little bit. So even though it doesn't look terribly problematic at this moment, I think it will definitely become a problem. Moving on to number 60 in the collection. This is my Bellara Peggy Ruth Carpenter. And this is one that just doesn't seem to care if I pay attention to it or not. It is, again, as I said earlier, it really got dried out and the bulbs looked like little accordions. They just completely leveraged all of the stored energy that they had. You can see it just finished blooming a while back, but even in the midst of all of the mistreatment, it managed to muster a little bloom. Now, I say this all the time, but just because a flower is in spike is not a barometer of its health. This plant can produce up to 5, maybe 6 blooms per flower spike. So the fact that it's produced one is great, but it doesn't mean that the plant is winning. But having said that, this plant is incredibly forgiving with me. It doesn't demand too much, and it seems to really roll with the punches and continue to bloom. So really appreciate that about this beauty. Okay, now I am standing on a chair to get this shot, but this is number 67 in the collection, my Epidendrum Hybrid Rose, and just look at these spikes. This is such a gigantic plant, and it just keeps getting taller and taller. But again, it is producing a flower spike, and it has been in bloom for months, almost ever since I had it, honestly. But this speckling on the leaves really does trouble me. I'm not quite sure what it is in response to. I do think that moving air is such a critical piece of the puzzle for all of these plants, that a lot of the dieback and a lot of the bacterial problems that you might see can be solved and circumnavigated by sustaining strong moving air, because that way, those pathogens don't land and rot into the plant. They really get dried up before they can act or create problems. So it's a lesson I've learned before, but I just haven't been good about, but it's so critical here. Now, I recognize that the totality of this collection update might feel a little somber, but that's just life, and we will all survive, thrive, and win. But I do want to end on a more positive note and just celebrate some of my friends in the orchid community who are crushing it. I want to say congrats to Cindy. Cindy got a division of the Cattleya Purple Blue Hawaii, number 28, and it just bloomed for her. Congrats. I knew you were going to do it. I want to say Robin, you're incredible for getting the Coryanthes macrantha to bloom. Robin very generously gave a home to the Coryanthes macrantha that I just could not sustain high enough humidity for. And the joy that you feel when that plant blooms is unbelievable. Congrats, you did it, and you should feel really proud. And also to Natty, I want to say congratulations. I'm so excited that the Odontocidium Wild Willie Pacific Bingo bloomed for you. And that's so wonderful because, you know, even though I'm struggling right now with my collection, I knew that I was struggling before, and I was able to rehome a lot of my plants and sell them to loving homes. And it just makes me so happy to see other people deriving joy from them and succeeding with them, because sometimes if it's not a fit, it's not a fit, and that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible grower. It just means that it's not a fit. And with that, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much, as always, for choosing to spend a little time with me. If you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. Be sure to support one another in the comment section because I'm so seldom available to do so. Don't forget to click subscribe and to have a beautiful rest of your day. Mwah! Bye, friends!